Good afternoon, everyone in the Eastern Time Zone, and good morning to everyone else. Welcome to this month's edition of Wild Wednesday webinar. I'm Paul Kiewit, the Executive Director of MIPA, and we're glad you could join us today. Want to mention that next month on September 30th, we're going to be having Matt Kasperi speaking on the agency approach, so mark that down on your calendars. For those of you in Michigan, we have an exciting end user show coming up, Promotions that Roar at Ford Field on October 7. Be watching your email inbox for more information on that, or visit mipa.org. And also would like to welcome our friends from OPA, TISPA, PPA Chicago, PPA Wisconsin, UMAP, and PPA Midwest. Thanks for joining us today, and for everyone else who have joined the broadcast. I'm excited today to be welcoming Charity Gibson from Green Banana. Charity is also the editor and social media director from Promo Kitchen, and today she's going to speak to us on Not So Common Sense. You have a chat box on the left side of your screen. If you have any questions throughout her presentation, feel free to type them in, and we'll get right to them. And so without any further ado, Charity, it's all yours.
Great. Thank you so much, Paul, for having me, and thank everybody for being on. I see about 21 of you guys, so we'll see who joins in the next couple minutes. Again, Wild Wednesday webinars. So super excited to be here and talking on this subject. It's something that's very passionate, that I'm very passionate about, and trying to ease distributor-supplier relations, easing tension in the supply chain, and just helping us communicate a little bit better for the good of the whole. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started here. One thing I really want to talk about is the industry on a whole. I believe that the industry is foundationally challenged. I'll go into what that means a little bit. We talk a little bit about low barriers to entry. That term comes up quite often in the promotional products groups, both on Facebook and LinkedIn, and then also in physical conversations I have with people as well. And a lot of people try to put that on certain organizations within our industry, but the low barriers to entry actually comes, in my mind, from the fact that we have a really fun industry, and we are unique in that we have the ability to allow people in that can work part-time hours, such as stay-at-home moms and things like that, that can make a decent, honest living working around flexible hours. And that presents a unique challenge because a lot of times those types of demographic do not have access to a larger organization, or they're not working for somebody necessarily. They are independent, and they're trying to kind of learn their way around the industry without a whole lot of help. Leading into the next topic on here, and the next bullet point is that education is available in abundance, but true training is hard to find. So I find this going back to where the foundationally challenged part comes in. We're letting a lot of people in, and we're telling them how to sell. We're giving them tools and history on the industry, and letting them know that the first promotional product was worn and purchased or used by George Washington in his political campaign. But that doesn't help people now. That doesn't help them learn how to write a purchase order and work with suppliers at a more interpersonal level to learn how to best manage the supply chain. So all types of things that we need to work on. Again, so low barriers to entry, not necessarily in the sense that we've talked about previously, but in a good way. I think that it's nice that a lot of people can come into this industry. They have connections that we may not have explored previously, but we need to work on providing education at a different kind of a level for people. This is the other part of that foundational breakage, is that our industry has a lot of really good things. You guys are out in the promotional products groups on Facebook, you're on LinkedIn, you're engaging on Promo Kitchen, which is fantastic, and then also in person at expos and different things like that. There's a lot of talk, but not much productive conversation. I don't know if you're in here, hands up, you probably have seen a lot of that going on. You've probably been a part of it, I'm guessing, not to be too assumptive here, but there's a lot of supplier versus distributor talk that goes on. Suppliers get frustrated with distributors that they want certain things for free and don't want to pay setup charges and proof charges, and then we come to trade shows and kind of fill our buckets with swag, and there's not a whole lot that moves past that, the sale kind of never comes. On the flip side of that, there's the distributor versus supplier conversation that happens quite often. You hear distributors banter back and forth about the same thing, the proof charges, and the $3 that we have to pay for the packing charge, or different things like that, that really in normal situations shouldn't be as huge of an issue as they are. But because we're lacking productive solution-driven interaction, those things become pressing issues, and then it's a lasting conversation. I think we've had some of these conversations that have gone on for a number of months, or actually even years in a lot of cases. So how it really should be, in order to elevate the industry and move past these conversations, is supplier plus distributor, both of us and service providers too, working together and understanding the processes that we each go through on a daily basis, what entering a purchase order looks like, the manpower needed behind producing a quote and getting an order from start to finish, what all that entails. And then a distributor, obviously, educating suppliers on what our typical day looks like too. And that's a huge thing. There's just such a giant disconnect between the two different sides of the supply chain, and that breeds a lot of tension. Moving forward, so food for thought. I love this quote, and I've been talking about this with a couple people, and I think it's very, very true as we look at changes that are coming in our supply chain moving forward. As distributors, we need suppliers in order to be able to do our jobs. We can't, as a distributor, there's, aside from going to China and working around CPSA compliance and things like that, it's just, quite frankly, easier and less risk to go through a supplier. But suppliers don't really need distributors to do their jobs. I hate to say that, but it's true. Right now, we are an effective means as a distributor of connecting suppliers with the end user market en masse, and suppliers continue to do so because of the value add that distributors bring to the supply chain. And what you guys can't see on that slide, sorry, I don't know when these Mac users over here, just kidding. Love you all, from the PC girl. So the part that's missing in here says, when value becomes questionable, the need for a new and improved method of distribution or a new distribution channel arises. So as a distributor, it's my personal goal to make it as easy as possible for suppliers to continue selling through me. And that means understanding what a supplier goes through on a daily basis, and understanding, where their margins are, and knowing how I can best be of service to them so that they can be of best service to me. If you are a distributor on this call, there's something that you might want to also look at here. If you think of yourself as the supplier to your end user, the same thing applies. And so we want to be make it as easy as possible for our end users to also buy from us. So, a supplier looking at this can say, how do I need to change and adapt to feed the needs of our marketplace, and then we need to also filter this down to how we can best serve the needs of our end users. And in order to do that effectively, once we talk to those our end users, once we talk to them and communicate with them, and we have all of this intelligent information, we need to make sure that we have the right connections and we're connected to the right people to filter this information up, so that our suppliers now have that information and can help us help the bottom line. So there's definitely something to be said about that. Think about that as you're moving forward in your relationships, not only with your suppliers, but also with your end users, and make sure that you're playing not only middleman and intermediary as far as providing a product and a service, but also running information back and forth and being the eyes and ears on the ground so that your suppliers know how to adapt their processes to help you help your customer. Things that distributors should be providing suppliers with in order to really keep us relevant and keep us a viable part of the supply chain. Clean, easy to read purchase orders that are 100% complete. Suppliers on the call, I'm sure, will probably raise your hand and be able to tell us that there are an exorbitant number of purchase orders that are not 100% complete. In addition, appropriately sized vector artwork with color separations if needed. If you don't know how to do this and you're a promotional products distributor, that's part of your value add. That keeps you relevant to your suppliers. It keeps you relevant in the supply chain. Your normal end user doesn't have any clue what vector artwork with color separations is. And if you don't know, it's your job and your responsibility, I feel, as a distributor to get that education and become knowledgeable about that. Or if you have the resource available, put someone on your staff who is, because that is part of what, keeps you important and keeps something, it's something that you can do that end users can't do. And then also your prompt replies to emails, clarifications, and proof approvals. This is where I have a really interesting time when I talk to suppliers. Okay, great. It doesn't take very long to throw out a virtual sample or to create a proof, especially if we send them appropriately sized vector artwork. But what I was really stunned about is talking to suppliers and hearing just how long and how many times it takes for a distributor to reply to an email, either a clarification, something needs to be done, or the proof approval, they send it and it takes 3 or 4 or 5 days. And that's a person behind the computer screen having to actually send that email. And if they're making a fair wage, say 10, 12, whatever, $15 an hour, whatever fair is in a salaried position in your eyes, that is minutes that add up. And so when distributors are wondering why we're getting charged for proof approvals and why we're getting piecemealed out, all of these things take time, and all of these things have a human touch behind them so that they're not automated. So you're kind of picking your poison. If you want everything automated and you want it cold and you want it to just run through the machine, that's one thing. But, suppliers are earning their margins too, and they're providing us with proof approvals and real people that we can talk to, and people that if we have an order issue, we can pick up the phone and call and really get a hold of somebody. So there's value there. And so we need to, respect that on the supplier's time and respect their dime as well. The next thing, respect them for the time, investment, knowledge, and wisdom. The one thing that I think distributors really don't understand is how many thousands of dollars go into coming to a trade show or flying out to lunch appointments, wherever your city is, multi-line reps, things like that, and the things that they give up in exchange for that lunch appointment with you. I watch the road warriors on Facebook that are out, and they are on the road 40 to 50 weeks a year. They're missing time away from their family, and they're missing basketball games and first days of schools, and that's a huge thing. So I think when you're talking about booking appointments with your supplier, or before you think, hey, I'm just gonna meet this guy and see his products and get a free lunch and then never call him again, be okay being upfront with them and saying, I appreciate you and your time, and I respect your line, and I know it. But if your time can be spent better somewhere else because I'm not able to give you that business, then just be upfront and tell them that. Respect their time, respect the investment that they're, putting into their business, into their journey, and then their knowledge and their wisdom. Use them and ask them questions. They know their product line better than you do, and they're there for that. They want to share that with you. So give them the time of day and, the respect enough to let them do that. And then the biggest thing, loyalty should extend beyond giving them, or be beyond them having the lowest price. That's such a huge thing. These are filtered down economics here, distributors, if you're hearing this. We would ask the same thing of our clients, that we're going out and we're spending our time marketing to them. We're earning our margin by, working with suppliers and getting them virtual proofs and going above and beyond and making sure that they have things in stock and, doing things above and beyond and really providing them extra value. And we hate it when they go and find an online retailer and they said, oh, but they were 2 pennies cheaper. So it's the same thing. When you find somebody that does something amazing and they give you amazing service and it's incredible and wonderful and you are tickled pink with everything that they provide, you really need to respect that. Obviously, there are insinuating circumstances that require you to go to a different vendor and things like that, but that's another opportunity for a conversation. just talk to your supplier and let them know, again, this is what happened. This is why I'm going elsewhere. And it's not because of the lowest price. It's because of a stock issue, or it's because of whatever. And put those value systems in place so that, people know where they stand with you. Going a little bit forward, what we're not providing suppliers as distributors, incomplete purchase orders that need repeat clarification. Something that I find really interesting about this industry, and I was thinking about this over the last couple days, is that most places, when you go to place an order, whether it be online or in person or otherwise, you have an order form. And we are not an order form industry. So that does provide a unique challenge in that, well, one, I don't think I would want, could you imagine if we had industry order forms? Every different supplier had a different order form to fill out. That would be ridiculous. So suppliers, if you're listening, please do not make that a standard. We don't want to go that route. But to that end, if we're this giant machine coming in and we don't have a standard order form, and you're a new kid on the bus, and you come in the first day and you're trying to place this purchase order, and luckily for me, there's a couple of the industry software tools out there that I was fortunate to learn about. And if you don't have a standard order form template or a purchase order template, those are built in for you in some of those service providers' software. But it's such an important thing to know what suppliers are looking for. If you're a distributor and you have never, this is your homework right now, have never spoken to a supplier about exactly what they would like to see, and do a survey, 5 or 10 different suppliers, take the time. What do you need on a purchase order? What would be helpful? Here's my standard purchase order. How can I eliminate things or add things to make this easier for you to process my order? And you would be amazed at the number of suppliers that would be tickled to have you ask that information, so that the next time you're putting in your purchase order, they are able to service that quickly and efficiently with the least number of errors possible. So that's your homework, everybody that's on here. There's 24, 25 of you. I expect a couple of calls going out today so that you can work with them and really build a purchase order structure and template that is giving the concise information, and that is giving what I tell my employees is, when you're building a purchase order and you're viewing it or previewing it, make sure that an 8-year-old can read it. And typically, and I also say make sure that it's idiot proof, because 9 out of 10 times I'm the one that's the idiot. So make your purchase orders idiot proof, mostly because, sometimes we're the idiots. We get busy, and, sometimes we say things in promo speak that other people may not understand. And if they're new to the industry too, they might not know exactly what you're talking about. So maybe let an 8-year-old even read it and make sure that they know that it's supposed to be a blue item with a white imprint, center and maximize for best look. And if it's right-handed drinker or left-handed drinker, if you need a wrap imprint. And these are all, again, things that if you don't know these terms, you need to seek out somebody that can help you learn top to bottom what different things mean. And again, there's something that, again, talking about education versus knowledge in the industry. There's a ton of education, but there is nothing necessarily that exists at present. There are a couple things, but nothing that's a really complete training. So rely on your suppliers, ask questions. Don't be afraid or embarrassed to talk to them and really, really get in conversation with them, because your information and your not knowing, your ignorance, helps them learn too how they can do things better. And then again, unreturned phone calls and emails, the number of calls and emails that they say that it takes to get a proof approved or a clarification email, ridiculous. And then unreasonable demands and unfair expectations. As distributors, I have heard from suppliers, we don't want to pay the proof charges and running charges, and where are the why am I getting charged for X, Y, and Z, and packing charges and everything else, and it needs to be in hands on September 1st, and then you're waiting 6 or 8 days to have a proof approval, and then you wonder why your order is running late. And the number of suppliers that have told me that this is a problem from the number of distributors that make it a problem is alarming. So make sure you guys are doing your due diligence and not putting unfair expectations on your suppliers. The other thing that I wanted to make mention of, there's been a debate too on the Promotional Products Professionals group, and then also in Promo Kitchen. We did a podcast, or not a podcast, I'm sorry, Bill. I think you're on the call, Bill. Hi. And Kirby did the salt and pepper on death to the printed catalog. And then we also had another kill the catalog thing. So everybody's, fighting for kind of an electronic system when it comes to cataloging. And there's something about coming into this industry 15 years ago that was taught to me at a very rudimentary level that was really important. And that is, obviously, suppliers cannot print setup fees, proof charges, run charges, copy change charges, all of these little teeny tiny details about what's going to be going into your order under each specific item in their catalog. So at the back of the catalog were those number of pages, kind of like the glossary of the index, that talked about all of those fun things. And if you're a newer distributor listening to this call, those are usually in the About Me section or the FAQs on websites. And if you're a supplier and you don't have that on your website, I think you're severely limiting yourself and maybe doing yourself a great disservice there. But that was one thing that we learned right away, is that your catalogs, it's about products and whatever, but it's also about each individual company's kind of policies and procedures. And it, for the most part, they're standard, but sometimes they change. And so, you have to, as a distributor, do your homework. My biggest, probably most favorite thing to say these days is earn your margin. We need to stay relevant in the supply chain, and we're going to do that by earning our margin. Again, the supplier is expected to foot the bill for expenses, and distributors don't want to incur these things. We don't want to be charged for proof. We don't necessarily know how to pass them on to our clients because we're so concerned that we're not going to get the order because we're playing the price game. So stop playing the price game. Know exactly what you're worth. When a customer or a supplier charges something piecemealing out, then take that as a blessing that they're not just rolling a proof charge and all of these other charges into their net costs and it's being paid across the board. You can teach yourself the skills and give yourself the advantage of waiving proof charges because you're including certain pieces of information in your standard templates on your purchase orders that will eliminate that completely. So that's super huge. And my contact information is at the end of this webinar too. So if it would be helpful for you guys to see what I use as a standard template, and even suppliers, I would love to show you what we're using. And if you have changes or something that we can do to make it better, I would love to hear that from you and then be able to share it with the group. So this is a huge thing. How do we make this better? How do we move past all of this kind of nonsense and noise in the supply chain? How do we start communicating with each other better past complaining in these groups and hearing the same question being asked over and over and over? Number one is get proper training. So again, and that's the suppliers and distributors. I think, suppliers sometimes I'll get on the phone to ask a question and I hear, oh, I don't know. No, I don't know. I'll find out. I don't know, whatever. I just don't know. And so suppliers and distributors both get proper training, know the ins and outs, the formalities, all of that fun stuff, and then pass that on to the people around you for sure. And instead of just being educated and having sales trainings and things like that, get the actual ins and outs and know-hows. Talk to your suppliers, talk to other distributors, keep lines of communication open, and find out how other people are doing it, and brainstorm with these people too to see, how maybe you guys can work better together to form new processes and new systems for getting these things done. Distributors, get some skin in the game. This is a huge one for me. Suppliers have a ton of skin in the game. Suppliers are heavily vested in their companies. They're not going anywhere. Millions of dollars in inventory, partnerships with companies and factories overseas. They have equipment in their facilities. They have hundreds sometimes of workers on the show or on their factory floors. And we're, as distributors, sometimes not even willing to invest the $25 in a self promo, or maybe $150 in a really cool self promo that actually says the right message, gives the right message about our brand. So be willing to put some skin in the game. Invest in your training, invest in good self promo, invest in flying out to these trade shows and talking with these suppliers that spend their time and their money, and invest in you they're willing to put, everything on the line to make sure that you have all the resources that you need to sell, and you need to be willing to reciprocate, really, and being, willing to get a vested interest in what you have going on. Along those same lines, attend networking events, make connections, get to know others beyond the products and services they provide. This is huge. And, so probably ask, what is, getting to know somebody beyond their product and service have to do with kind of crossing the bridge in the supply chain and keeping things relevant? And I would venture to say it has everything to do with that. And a few weeks ago, you guys probably saw, if you're on Facebook, a number of industry people flew to Raleigh, North Carolina to hang out with Danny Rosen and band together. And it was funny, between us, we were sitting at a table and there's 4 different affiliate organizations represented, different competing distributor organizations, competing supplier organizations, and you see all of those people talking, not only in the social sphere and referring back and forth to one another, partnerships that cross brand bounds, but that, connects in person too, and really, really helps beyond. If I know that I have a relationship with somebody that, we went to a concert together and we helped unpack sunglasses together and all of these things, when my water bottle order comes in or my tumbler order comes in, I know who I'm going to first, because it's blood, sweat, and tears out there. So it's more trust, and, than just, calling on a phone and talking to a customer service rep all the time. Get out to these trade shows, get to your regional associations, like MIPA, and like today we're at AZPPA. Just get to know people beyond their products and services. We have stories, and that's what people buy from us for, is our stories. And again, all of this stuff, distributors, can be filtered down into your businesses as well. And then ask questions and discuss problems. This is such a huge thing. I think we're scared as human beings in general to be transparent with one another, because the last thing we want to do is look like we're ignorant, or that we don't know what's going on, or that even with all of our experience, gosh, I'm afraid to let people know the challenges that I'm having, because there's this stigma that we have to, appear as, perfect or what have you. It's not the case. Your suppliers need to know what's going on. Suppliers, you need to ask distributors what specific types of problems they're having in their businesses. It might be financial. It might be, trying to find a new market to sell to. And suppliers, you might have the answers that all the distributors need. Likewise, distributors, you might be able to say something or do something that will help a distributor or a supplier immensely, because they don't know the systems and processes that we use on a daily basis. So let them know what you're having challenges with. If you don't understand a certain process, ask a question. And then most importantly, don't just, talk about problems, but make a consistent effort, work together to find or create a solution. And I think that's one of the most underutilized tools in the relationship toolbox that we all have, whether it be work or interpersonal, whatever, is if a solution doesn't exist, you can think outside the box. In fact, I encourage you to work together with other people. And Tony Shea, back when he spoke with PPAI a few years ago, he was talking about collision opportunities. And that's like the whole premise behind his downtown revitalization project, is providing opportunities for people to collide by pouring money into different coffee shops and boutique shops and clothing shops and things like that in downtown Las Vegas. The container park and all of that is providing opportunities for people that are thinking at a high level to just bump into each other and to talk about things, and ideas are generated from that, and magic happens when all of that occurs. So make sure that you are open to working together, work with the suppliers that you have, and also other distributors, because you'll find that other distributors are doing it differently. It's not always better, but sometimes it's different, and you can work together to kind of mold and adapt your strategies to not only work through current existing problems, but then innovate and start pushing things forward and be the horse pulling the cart instead of the other way around. I think that's it. That's really all I have in the presentation going on today. Hope that's helpful, and letting you guys see just how very important it is for this gap to be bridged. The conversations that we've been having, again, in these groups are kind of unnerving sometimes, and I think there's just a huge need for people to powwow. I think that the Tech Summit was a huge opportunity for technology leaders in the industry to get together and sit around a table and powwow and really do some high-level thinking and work through some of they've surpassed these bottom-level problems, and they're working on things that are really, really innovative. And I think if the industry at large can do that, there's bright things in our future. And I think that's it. We do have a question. Isn't a proof always recommended? I send vector art and a PDF on a vectors template. Hold on one second. We're CYA for everyone. In addition, sometimes that proof has to go out to my end user, and that can add time as well. I agree with that. Now, it is CYA for everybody to have a proof, even if you're using vector art. However, there's the complaint that you have the option to waive the proof, obviously, but waiving the proof doesn't have to be standard. I waive the proof, and that's the end of it. You can add in standard template, standard verbiage in your purchase order, which is what I like to do. That lets people, it puts the burden of proof back on the supplier. And sometimes I'll get a proof anyway because then they are wanting to make sure, and it will be a free proof after that because they want to make sure that it matches. But my standard verbiage in my POs says, if I send vector artwork and I send a virtual sample, my standard verbiage says no proof needed if art on file matches attached reference file and virtual sample. And so that's my workaround. It depends on the size of the order. It depends on the vendor that I'm using, but there's a way around that charge. So you don't have to incur that fee every time if you're using trusted vendors and you use standard verbiage that kind of puts the burden of proof back on the supplier. And Scott, yes, I am on LinkedIn. Go ahead and find me. If you just search Charity Gibson, the same picture that's coming up right now will also be my LinkedIn profile picture. I'll look for you as well. Anybody else have questions? I'd love to hear from you. Hopefully making sense, or comments. If there's something that I've said that you disagree with and want to, pick an argument, I'm totally cool with that too. Happy to entertain. I love to hear what other people have to say because I know I have, definitely a lot to learn as well. Anybody else? All right. Well, I think we will go ahead and sum up here and finish out. But yes, please definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. That's my email address, my phone number. If you haven't found me on Facebook, you might not want to. I apologize in advance if you do because I overpost profusely. But I'm happy to answer any questions or foster any ideas and get the conversation going.
Thank you, Charity. And if anyone has any additional questions, feel free to put them into the chat box now. I'd like to thank Charity for not so common sense. Great tips there, especially about us earning our margin, knowing our worth, and investing in this industry, which gives back so much, particularly when we learn how to network and partner and learn the true meaning of partnership going beyond price. Would like to remind you that you can get CAS credits for today's webinar. As you check out of today's meeting, you'll be led to a survey. If you'll enter your educational PIN number and the regional that you're part of, I'll submit that to PPAI for you. If you don't know your PIN number and you're not a member of MIPA, if you'd ask your local regional association, your executive director can get that PIN number for you. And again, I'm Paul at MIPA.org, and you can follow up with me after the webinar in that area. Also like to remind those of you listening from Michigan, MIPA's members only end buyer booth show, the big extravaganza at Ford Field, is coming up on October 7. Always an exciting time. We expect more than 1,000 participants this year. And also next month, September 30th, on Wild Wednesday webinar, same time. The coordinates will be coming out onto our website. We have Matt Kasperi talking about the agency approach and how to position your distributorship as more of a sales promotion agency. Going to be another great webinar. Also, make sure that you thank your regional association for making this available. Wild Wednesday Webinars is a production of MIPA, OPA, TISPA, PPA Chicago, PPA Wisconsin, UMAP, and PPA Midwest. This presentation has been recorded. It will be posted up later on MIPA's Facebook page and also at mipa.org/Wednesday-webinars.html. And you can listen to the whole thing. There's a link up above if you'd like copies of Charity's slides. So once again, Charity, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate the information and your time. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, guys. Thanks for everybody attending. I appreciate you, and I hope to connect and talk with you all soon.